Welcome to Simple Conversations with ASG.
Before you start listening to today's episode, I need your help. We're quickly approaching Christmas and the 1-year anniversary of Simple Conversations. A staple in this show has become the question, what's annoying you this week? And I want to celebrate that with a twist. I have some repeat guests lined up to discuss everything that's annoyed us in 2024, but I want to know what annoyed you this year also. In the description, there's a form that will allow you to participate in some of the special episodes I have lined up. Anyway, that's enough from me. On to today's conversation. So tell me, who is Mr. Buzz?
It's a little bit of a loaded question, I'll be honest with you. So
should we change it?
Yeah. So I worked for 20 or so years at Fortune 15 company, JP Morgan. I'd always wanted to do my own thing. Finally decided to leave there. It was just the right time finally to be able to kind of branch off and do my own thing. Left there, didn't even know what I was going to do. Didn't know what I do now for a living was a thing because I had been in the corporate world my entire career. And left there and, kind of started my own business as a fractional CFO, business strategist, helping people run their business more profitably, more efficiently. And during that time, written a few books, done some online coursework, done a ton of video stuff. I've had my own radio show now. We were just talking about before we got started here we just crossed over 8 years now. We've been doing the show, Mr. Biz Radio. That's a lot of fun. But yeah, I competed athletically. I was fortunate enough to have some success there and was able to break some world records and all that good stuff. But I guess that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Incredible. What's annoying you this week?
What's annoying me this week? I usually try to stay away from like negative thoughts or like whining about stuff. But since you asked,
give it a licensed dog here.
Yeah, you've lobbed it out there. So, one of the things that's honestly been annoying me this week, there's two things, honestly. One is the backlash of the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight, which was a absolute sham shit show. And I knew it was going to be that, but I couldn't not stay up to watch it just in case it wasn't. But that's been, it was just so disappointing that Mike must need the money. I know he got paid a lot of money for that supposedly. And so I've been pretty annoyed by that. But the other thing is similarly, the backlash from the presidential election here in the United States, just like politics in this country are so extreme now. There's like almost no moderate. There's no middle ground. And so if one side wins, the other one like completely overreacts. And that's what we're going through. It happened 4 years ago when the left won and the right was going crazy, and now the right won, and so the left is going crazy. It's tiring and it is annoying. At the same time, I want to participate and be part of those conversations and engage with people, especially people that have different beliefs than me, because I think that's how you learn, as long as it's a civil conversation. It doesn't, resort into name calling and all this other crap, which unfortunately happens way too often. And that's been one of the annoying things is I feel like people just completely overreact to things, especially in politics, at least here, in the US. And it's just, oh my gosh, it's been annoying.
It has indeed. Even someone who's not from America watching it, it's almost like sports press conferences the whole way up. It's like who can belittle who and who can get the best trash talk. Like I messaged David Watt about it, who was on the show but hasn't been released yet, unfortunately. But he was talking about it like it is like back and forth, like a boxing or a basketball press conference. Like it's so funny how it goes like that, and then all of a sudden, for one brief moment, they get really serious, and then they're back to being entertaining again.
Yeah, it's crazy. But those are two things that have been annoying me this week.
Yeah, the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson one stuff. It's confusing to me so much because I didn't watch it purposely because I thought it was going to be what it was, or just kind of handbagging each other. But me and Scott Fryer were talking about this during the week. There must have been a change in it though. Whenever Mike Tyson the first time had health issues, there must have been a case that they went, right, put good pro boxers on the card leading up to the fight, like Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano is incredible fight, and then in the end of the fight, you two just show up, make it entertaining, go easy. Nobody knock no one out. No one go for no power punches. Mike, stay alive. Jake, don't get fucking knocked out. It must have been that. It must have turned from a real fight to a marketing ploy, because I do believe the first time they were really going to fight, but Mike Tyson having basically a stroke before a fight isn't exactly going to help anybody's case, really.
And it's interesting to me, and who knows what, you see all this stuff, who knows what's right or not, but I saw someone posted a clip, I think on TikTok, and they said, and supposedly the fight had to go either 7 or 8 rounds, or Tyson wasn't going to get paid as much. So like if it was a 1-round fight, he would literally get paid almost nothing. So he needed to go long. Well, then someone showed this clip, which was pretty compelling, in the first round. And Tyson comes out, he's moving around, he's throwing punches. And then all of a sudden, they get into a clinch. And you see Jake Paul lean over, and their heads are side by side. And there's something. And then Tyson nods his head and like taps him on the shoulder with his glove, like, I got it. And of course, people are alleging that Jake Paul was like, hey, you need to chill. Like, that hurt. And I don't like that. You need to chill and relax. And then after that, it's funny because then they showed the next, 30 seconds of the fight, and Tyson's just kind of dancing around, barely throwing punches. And it's like, oh, come on, man. Look, Jake Paul annoys the absolute shit out of me, but he's a genius. I mean, as far as making money and the marketing aspect of it, he knew people were going to watch because it's Mike Tyson. But here's Mike Tyson's twice his age. Like, dude, come on. Well, I know he's Iron Mike, but he hasn't been Iron Mike for freaking 30 years, and so maybe more than that. So it's like, and he doesn't fight anyone who's like anywhere close to his age, or if he does fight someone close to his age, then he's significantly heavier than them. He wasn't drug tested for the fight. Tyson was. And I can't imagine that. Why would you put that stipulation in if you weren't planning on partaking in some performance enhancing drugs? Otherwise you'd be like, yeah, test me. I don't care. Right. So anyway, it was an absolute sham and mockery. And I just, was disappointed. And even people made a big deal. And I guarantee it was all like part of the sell or the ruse at the weigh-ins when Tyson smacked him. Like, my wife saw that and she was like, oh my gosh, did you see that? Like, he was really mad. I said, what you didn't notice was that, first of all, Mike Tyson, Iron Mike Tyson, would have punched him with a fist, first of all. Second of all, he slaps him with an open hand. And then if you watch that video again, he slaps him and backs up. That's not aggressive. That's not what Iron Mike Tyson was. Iron Mike Tyson would have punched you in the face and then jumped on top of you and wailed on you, right? If he was truly mad. So I can almost guarantee in the back, Jake Paul was like, hey man, smack me. Like, act like you're mad, smack, whatever. We'll play this up to get more people to watch. And it worked. I mean, people watched it. I don't know how many. I heard they were claiming like 60 million people worldwide.
Apparently it was 60.
Yeah.
Insane.
So again, I don't like Jake Paul whatsoever, but he's a genius, because he's pulling this crap off. And we, or at least me, you didn't fall for it, continue to fall for it. I was texting with a buddy that night, and we were both like, I'm like, I don't want to stay up and watch this stupid fight, but if I don't, and it's an actual fight, I'm going to be very disappointed tomorrow. And so we're texting during the fight, and he's like, can I go to bed now? And I'm like, I don't know. Is this going to be like, we're going to like pity pat around until the 8th round and then like best man wins? Like, I don't want to go to bed until, anyway.
Yeah, it's so weird because my opinion on Jake Paul was always pretty bad, but since that fight, my opinion has actually got a lot better because he is doing the best thing possible. Whenever he fought an actual boxer, nobody cared about it. It just wasn't entertaining. The real boxer just done what a boxer does, dances around, hits him a couple of times, moves away. Everybody wants to see him prize fight the most famous nobody ever and knock him clean out, and we're all gonna watch it. Like, I looked on Twitter the day, and every day there's more searches for Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. Like, it is the most perfect scam ever. Everybody's telling him go fight a real boxer, so he's gonna fight everyone else. Jake Paul can fight any pro boxer in the world. Every pro boxer in the world wants a bit of that payday. That's a $10 million payday minimum. he's doing it so perfectly because look, like you said, you and your buddy were talking about it. He's got everybody talking. Doesn't matter who he fights.
Yeah.
It's
Well, and it's,
phenomenal.
if you think about it, I feel like he took a page out of Conor McGregor, out of his book. How did Conor McGregor pull off never having a boxing match his entire career, and he ends up getting a bout against maybe pound for pound the greatest boxer ever? And what kind of payday did he get for that? You know, how, and the reason is because, like Jake Paul, he's a master marketer. You know, Conor McGregor is, and the shit talking he does, people want to watch, because you either love his shit talking and you want to see him beat somebody, or you hate his shit talking and you want to see him get his ass kicked. Either way, you want to watch.
Yeah, I think Jake learned from whenever he did fight two pro boxers that he needs someone who's going to be entertaining on the other side too. Like Mike Tyson's great at talking, Mike Perry's loud mouth, like all these people. Tyrone Woodley can threaten anybody. Like he'll need someone on the other side that's going to do a bit of talking, because then that's free marketing as well. Saying everybody then roots against it. He wants someone to root against him. If he fights a 1 in 4 pro boxer, everyone's gonna root for Jake Paul, and he doesn't want that.
Imagine if Paul and McGregor fight, and I think they will. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I think they will.
Coming.
I think it's inevitable. Imagine those two fight. It'll be, I mean, I hate to be like hyperbole or whatever. It'll be twice the Tyson fight, because McGregor and Paul will talk so much crap to each other in the lead up. They'll have more staged little events and everything. They're closer in age. They're closer in body weight and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, it'd be absolutely insane. The numbers they would do and the money that each of those guys would make would be absolutely freaking insane.
Yeah, I think it is coming. I think that's actually what he's waiting for, to be honest. But yeah, it's going to be incredible. But anyway, we can talk with us all day, so we need to switch this over. So you mentioned in your intro about breaking some records, and you've not sold that enough. You broke world records. Am I right in saying this was in powerlifting?
Yeah.
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 How does a powerlifter become a businessman? It's different
funny.
worlds.
Yeah, it's funny. When I was in the midst of all that, people were like, "You should," because there was someone that was in the powerlifting community that his shtick was that he was the world's strongest policeman, and they're like, "You got to market yourself as like the world's strongest businessman." But no, I just, I'd always worked out and everything like that, and then way back, I became a certified personal trainer. I just always worked out. And I got to the point where I was getting stronger and stronger. And then there was a person at the gym that I was lifting at that had competed in powerlifting. And he said, "Hey, you got to come work out with, me and my guys." And I said, "I'm not even nearly strong enough to work out with you guys." I said, "Let me get to this threshold. Once I can get to this strength, then I'll come train with you guys. I feel like I'm just going to be, I'll be the little weak guy at the back and whatever." And so then I started competing with him, and he had competed at the world level as well. And so that was a big part of it. Is, he's basically my powerlifting mentor, and coming up around someone like that, he'd broken some world records himself, and so it's like one of those things you always hear is, the people you surround yourself and how important that is. If I had, if it had been a guy at my gym that had competed in some local competition and bench pressed 300 pounds, I probably would have never ascended to the heights that I was fortunate enough to be able to ascend to. Because the guy that got me into the sport had won world championships, had broken world records. To me, it was like, well, that's possible. That's something you can do. Whereas, otherwise I may not even thought that way, because it's that whole, small fish in a big pond or big fish in a small pond, makes a huge difference. And I think, whether that's powerlifting, whether that's in your business life, it doesn't matter what it is. I think it's super important. I think a lot of people think it's cliched about, when people say about, you're kind of the product of the 5 people you hang out with the most. It is so true, man. Like, think about it this way. And this happened during COVID. If you're hanging out with people and they're heavy drinkers and you start drinking, say during COVID, more than you normally do, right? And I use this example. I think actually I had it in my last book. Let's say all of a sudden you get up to where you're drinking, one of your buddies comes to you and goes, man, you're kind of really hitting the sauce a little bit there. You maybe want to back off. And you go, I only drink 10 beers a day. But Bob, who I hang out with, that guy knocks back a 12-pack plus every day. So-and-so drinks a fifth of whiskey every day. So it's the people you're around all the time. So you're like, a 12-pack of beer a day, that's not, I don't drink that much. Well, you probably shouldn't be drinking 10 beers a day either, right? So, it's that, again, that could be negative, right? You're hanging out with people that have some habits that maybe you're not great, but because I'm not as bad as those guys, I'm not, well, come on, I don't drink a fifth of whiskey a day like Bob does, and you're like, it's not that bad. And actually, maybe it is. And in this case, for me, it was very positive being around someone who had, had such great success in the sport that, kind of opened my eyes. And the first time I went, right after I started training with him, there was the World Championships coming up, or actually National Championships. And I went to the Nationals and watched it. And then it really started to make me think, I'm like, I think I can get to this level, and then I qualified, went to my first National Championships. And I told my wife at the time, I said, if I qualify for the World Championships, I'm going. Like, because I might never do this again. Like, this is, top people in the world. And I was fortunate enough and I qualified. And so I went to my World Championships, was a massive underdog. I'd never been to a World Championship before. And I won the first time I went there. So then all of a sudden that success breeds more success, right? So now you're like, hey, I am good at this. I can do this. I can not only compete, I can win at this, at this high level. And so that kind of just catapulted everything. And, after I won a bunch of national and world championships, then it was like, okay, I wanted to win in different weight classes. So I was changing my body weight to be in different classes so I could win world championships in different classes. And then it became, okay, what's the next thing? And so then it was like, well, what's a world record in one of these weight classes? Let me go after a world record. And then I broke a world record, and I was like, well, let me break a world record in another weight class. But it all goes back to, what I was saying earlier is that you got to be around the right people. Otherwise, I would have never probably even aspired to the level, that I was able to achieve, because I wouldn't even think it was possible, or, whatever it might be.
There's so many business owners and successful people in general that they either get really obsessed with health and fitness, or they really neglect it. Where do you see the crosshairs here? Is there any kind of similarities in all the people that do take their body very seriously while they are business owners, and those who kind of neglect it and let it just sit in the back burner while they work?
I think, honestly, I might slightly disagree with you, because I think it's the same type of person that's on both sides, and I think it's people who have a high level of success, let's say in the health and fitness world or whatever, and business owners that are successful. I think they're the same person, same, I should say, personal perspective, same mindset. And it's that you become essentially obsessed with success in whatever your field is. And if that's health and fitness, you're obsessed with that, and you're going to do everything, and your whole world is built around that. And I think that some people go from that to becoming a business owner, and they become obsessed with being a business owner. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not nearly in the shape. I'm probably in the worst shape I've ever been in my entire life right now, because I've shifted focus, right? So my focus is not near, I still, work out and do things like that, but not anything near what I used to do. I didn't have balance, right? Frankly, back then, to achieve that success, balance was a very difficult thing to have, especially as I was approaching competitions and things. And so I think now it's just a shift of focus. It's that same, obsessed with success mindset, but it's shifted in a different direction.
Do you think that work-life balance can ever truly exist?
I think it can. What I like to think of it is as, at least what I think, to be massively successful in any endeavor, whatever it is, you have to at least be temporarily unbalanced. And you have to make sure that the people around you, whether it be family, wife, kids, whatever, are on board with that goal and understand, so the last I would usually have 18-week training cycles leading up to a competition, and it would get increasingly intense as I got closer and closer to that. And so, especially the last 6 weeks before competition, I'm going to be unbalanced. And I'll make up for it afterwards. And I'm not going to like neglect my family and not see my kids or, anything like that. But it wasn't the same balance that you could have. And I think having temporarily unbalanced, and then after competition, I'd be unbalanced the other way because I'm making up time and I'm spending more time with my kids and my family and things like that. And so I think overall there's a balance, right? But in temporary situations, it can get, the scales can tip in one direction or another. And I think, again, for anyone, think about, we were talking about Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. And think about a boxer or a fighter, an MMA fighter. As they're leading up to a competition, they probably are not at a training camp. They're not even around their family. As they're getting a more aggressive mindset and as they're training 3-4 times a day in their training camps leading up. So again, they're unbalanced, but then they fight and they don't fight for whatever, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And so I'm guessing the balance goes back the other way, right? They're still probably training every day, but maybe once a day, and that's their job. So now they've got plenty of time to spend with family and other endeavors and everything like that. So,
yeah, you're now at a point in your career where you're starting to advise other business owners on what they can kind of do better in their business and work more efficiently. But you now reach about 2 million people per month. Would you say that's right? And
at least, yeah.
you've also got a goal, haven't you, to help 10,000 businesses?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that pressure? Because that's a lot of pressure knowing whatever you say, 2 million people are going to watch, and realistically 10% is going to take that on board. That's 10% of 2 million is a lot of people, and even 10,000 businesses. Does it ever bode on you a lot about that pressure knowing my advice here it could decide someone's livelihood?
Honestly, I've never thought about that way. So thanks for that. Just kidding. No.
Your nightmares now.
No. Honestly, it doesn't, because a couple things. So number one, I think a lot of people that consume the content that I put out, a lot of them won't even take action. A lot of them will take it in and maybe think about it or whatever. But and the other thing is, to be honest with you, I'm this is going to sound maybe a little self-centered, but I'm very confident in what I do, and I don't swing for things that I can't hit home runs on, right? So I don't veer outside of my area of expertise. There have been times when someone will ask me a question, I'll be like, I'm probably not the right guy to ask for that. I know a little bit about that, but not enough to really, give you some really good advice. So I try to stay in my own lane, so to speak, and not go outside of that. But no, and here's the other thing. Everything's perspective, right? So think about it this way. So you say 2 million, 10%, even if, the 10,000 business thing, there are roughly 30 million small businesses just in the United States. 10,000 is less than way less than 1%. It's less than 0.5%. So when you put it in that perspective, it's like, well, that almost seems like it's a crappy goal. That's like it's too low. You know what I mean? So I think everything becomes in perspective. And again, it's that small fish in a big pond, thinking about things in the possibilities in a much grander scale of and I said in the grand scheme of things, it helps put things in perspective, I think. And at least, it's helped me in that way, again, whether it be in business and life, athletics, whatever it might be.
Yeah. So you're trying to show business owners how they can work more efficiently. How much does I know there's this real problem business owners have of giving up ownership and delegating. How much does delegation go into this working more effectively?
If you are enjoying this episode, follow and rate the show.
Yeah, I mean, that's honestly, especially people who start as a solopreneur and start a business by themselves, that's the most difficult thing, right? Because for those people, that business is literally like their child. And there's no one that's going to care more about your child than a parent, right? Grandmas and grandpas are great. It's not their child, right? Aunts and uncles are great. It's not their child. And so I think that's what, people that I work with, clients, people I mentor, that's like the number one thing is, well, if I hire someone, they won't do it as well as I do. I get it. and they probably won't. In a lot of cases, they probably won't. But if they do it 80% as well as you do, and that frees you up to put 100% on something that's more impactful in the business, you got to make that change. And a big part of that is making sure you're hiring the right people, right? People that not only understand whatever it is you want them to do as far as having the expertise to be able to complete those tasks, but also have your same sort of philosophy on life, on business. So they're going to be, if they're dealing with customers, they're going to be treating people the way you want them to be treated, right? They've got your same philosophy. And I think once you go through that, and from what I've seen, like once a business owner does that, takes the leap and hires one person, and it's the right person, it's a really good person, they fit the culture, they fit all the beliefs and everything, even if they're not as good as the business owner at whatever it is, they get a comfort level right away because they start to see that that person is caring and is handling the baby, so to speak, the way they would want the, it's like, when you're, when my wife and I had our first baby, and, we didn't have anyone have a babysitter for her for a long time. Cause it's like, well, who grandma watched, right? But then how do you trust a stranger with your baby? You know what I mean? And so it's very similar analogy to a business owner hiring that first quote unquote babysitter in the business, but it is critically important. Think about this. So, you've heard of all these successful entrepreneurs, all these business owners. Can you name one of them that became massively successful by themselves?
None.
If you find someone, please let me know, because no one, to my knowledge, no one has ever done that. You have to have people with you. You have to have a team around you to be able to do that. And so the faster you understand that you have to be able to do that, to delegate those things, the faster you're going to scale, and the growth in your business is going to happen exponentially once you cross over that bridge.
Yeah, there is a thing of anyone, not even just business owner, just anyone in general in life that does set a goal and try and work towards it. You always kind of have that insecurity in your mind of, is someone going to do this better than me? And maybe that's what business owners struggle with delegation so much. They're like, what if I hire someone and they do a better job than I do and they want to take over the company, or people think that they should be in charge? Do you think that that's maybe, I don't know if it's a confidence thing. It might just be something embedded in everybody. It's like whenever you start going to the gym, you're never going to be fully happy with your body. Do you think that dysmorphia or that insecurity drives people to not delegate and maybe then hinders what their business could really do?
It could. Yeah, I could see where that could happen. I think generally, though, most business owners, you got to have some stones to start a business. And so I think most business owners don't lack in confidence. If anything, they may lack with a little too much confidence. And also, I'll flip it the other way. There are times when you as a business owner are trying to wear all these different hats and you think you're doing a great job. And I'll use a real simple example. Let's say you're doing all your marketing and you're like, man, I'm getting a 30% return. Like I'm kicking butt. And I go, yeah, if you hired someone who does this for a living, you're going to get a 200% return. Right? So you think 30, oh man, I'm killing it. I'm getting 30% return. How about someone, again, another simple example is someone who runs Facebook ads and they work for an agency. They do it every day for a living. They see exactly every single day what's working, whereas you're trying to figure it out and you're Googling stuff. When you're Googling things, for the most part, by the time it hits something that you're going to hit on Google or even in AI now, AI is much faster, obviously, but it's probably dated information. Whereas you got someone who's in an agency, in this marketing example, they may be running hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in Facebook ads. Who do you think knows Facebook ads better? You in your Google search or your Chat GPT search, or someone who's literally in the trenches running hundreds of thousands of dollars every day? That it's going to get you the massive returns and a much faster return, as opposed to you trying to figure it out and trial and error, and it might take you, a couple of months, whereas this person 2 weeks in, they're already crushing it because they know exactly, they have a finger on the pulse of what's working in that particular aspect. And that's another example where, man, you got to get out of the way. I know when you're bootstrapping initially, you don't want to do that and you want to try to figure things out on your own. I completely understand that. But at the same time, bring someone in who's really good at whatever it is, and maybe you're not as good. And that's another thing that's critically important for business owners, is to be self-aware. I know that there's certain things that honestly I'm really good at. And I also know there are certain things that I am awful at. And so I need to stay the hell away from the awful things and bring someone in who's really good at those things and enjoys doing those things and is passionate about doing the things. Because let's face it, almost everyone likes to do things that they're good at, right? If you're a great basketball player, you want to play pickup basketball with your friends all the time because you're the best basketball player. I'm going to kick everyone's butt. This is great. If you don't know how to play billiards and your buddy's really good at billiards, he wants to play billiards all the time, and you don't want to play billiards because you know he's going to bury you, right? And so you got to find that those things is, get the heck out of the way, get out of your own way, be self-aware enough to know when you're hiring someone what strengths. And it not only comes down to, technical aspects of, let's say, marketing or whatever, but it also comes down to certain aspects of maybe even your personality. I think personality tests are very important as well. You don't want to hire people who are just like you. And honestly, I found in my corporate career, that's what most people do, because presumably you like yourself. And when you interview someone and they exhibit the same type of attributes that you have, you're like, hey, this guy or girl's pretty smart. I like them. They're good people. Well, they may be, going back like the Myers-Briggs thing. You may end up hiring a bunch of people that have the same initials as you. And you think that's great. But in my opinion, it's not. You need to have a balanced team of people who think in different ways to have more effective solutions so you don't get tunnel vision. You're not all thinking the same way. And so that's another thing that's important is not only the technical, things like I said, like marketing or something like that, where someone has to have marketing skills that maybe are better than yours. But I think also very important is to look at those other personal aspects of that, people that are different than you, that don't think exactly like you on different matters and on a much more macro level, because that's going to enhance your team. That's going to give you a much better rounded view of things, as long as you're open to that feedback. You hire someone that's different than you and you just shut down all of their ideas, it's not going to work, right? So you have to be self-aware and you have to be open to having someone like that that's going to push back on you and be okay with that.
Do you think leadership is an overlooked skill in business?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. A perfect example. And I wrote about this a little bit in my last book is, Elon Musk. So everyone sees now Elon Musk and he's the richest guy in the world and he's got all the success and all these great companies and whatever. People don't know that 2 of the first, I think 3 or 4 businesses he started, he got kicked out of. He was a founder, and going in, they went to him and said, "We're better without you, man. You're gone. We're kicking you out." Most people don't know that he literally got booted. One time, he got booted while he was on his honeymoon. Talk about ruthless, right? And not many people know that because everyone sees now the Elon Musk of now and the success. And I've heard him interviewed about it, and he said, "Yeah, at the time I was severely hurt. My ego was bruised, and I was really pissed." He said, and looking back a few years later, I'm like, I was a terrible leader. And, I'm kind of paraphrasing, but he's like, I was super smart and I knew whatever it is we're trying to build here, but he had no EQ, no people skills whatsoever, and expected everyone was going to work 80 or 90 hours a week like him. And if you didn't, you were a terrible employee and he would lean on you and be mean and whatever. And he's like, yeah, you can't lead a company. You can't be a leader like that. Like that doesn't work. That might work in the short term. Over the long term, no one's going to want to work for you. You're going to have constant turnover, that whole employee retention. You'll have no loyalty. He said, that's why I got fired from 2 companies that I founded, because I was a terrible leader. And so, he's a great example. And I've heard him talk about it even recently in the last, 18 months, 24 months he said, I'm still learning. Like I still revert back to those old ways, even though I've learned, guys, I'll catch myself ranting about something that is like, oh my God, this is me from 20 years ago. Wait, let's fast forward. We don't want that anymore. So yeah, I think leadership is massively important, especially as, as I said, as you're growing and scaling a business.
It's funny you bring up Elon Musk because I just learned a few days ago about this PayPal mafia thing. Have you heard about this? That picture, whenever you hear the story of the PayPal mafia, is so iconic. Like anybody that's listening doesn't know, it's basically Elon's school, like college friend group, and every single one of them is founded like a featured top 10 company of some sort.
Yep.
And that goes back to what we were saying at the start about surrounding yourself with people. Do you imagine surrounding yourself with that? The PayPal mafia, they're called.
But I'm glad you brought that up, because I would be very curious. Like, those guys individually, if they would have had their own different friend groups, would any one of them be as successful as they are now? Or, like we're talking about, is you're around those people and your buddy's killing it, and you're like, well, then I can do that too. I'm just as smart as him or her or whatever, and I can do it. If they can do it, I can do it, right? And so I think, again, that's a huge part of it. But yeah, if you see people listening, Google PayPal Mafia, you'll see the picture. And more than likely, the picture will have the names of the people. And if you're not familiar with anyone in there, Google their name, and you'll see exactly what you're talking about. Like, these freaking amazing multi-billion-dollar companies that have been founded by these guys. And it was like, again, like you said, imagine that being your friend group. But I wonder how much of it is a product of those guys being together, or a product of any one of them individually. Not that Elon Musk isn't a super smart guy and a bunch of other people in that group, but would they have had as much success, or was it a lot of it is because of the product of that, that group being together?
Yeah, you can only imagine what those conversations were. But when I heard about it, like, I heard about it before, the PayPal mafia, but I'd always just assumed it was something that happened after Elon sold PayPal. But then I got caught in a wormhole about it, and it was, oh my God, blew my mind. But that photo and that story is exactly what people mean by surround yourself with better people. And I think anybody that hears the story, or as you said, Googles it, they'll understand what that truly means. But do you have any advice for people on how to find that group that they need to be around, and how to know that they're in the wrong one right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, what I do is, and I've done this with a bunch of different things, and like even going back to my powerlifting days, and it's something, I have in my last book, I talk about SMAC. It's a 4-step formula, and the M in SMAC is model expert behavior. So what I do is, anytime I have an endeavor that I'm trying to achieve, I go out and find who's great at this, who's just top person, one of the top people in the world, and I study everything they do. I try to meet with them if I can make that happen. But at a minimum, I read their books. So I'm, even though they might not be part of my, direct inner circle sitting across the desk from me, they kind of become part of my inner circle, because I'm burying myself in their content. So a few years ago, I wanted to hone my speaking skills. I was starting to do more speaking engagements. I wanted to hone my speaking skills. So I went out and did a bunch of different searches on the top 10 speakers in the world. Didn't matter what they talked about. I just want to know, because there's certain things that are, when you've heard a great speaker, like a great speaker, and you're like, holy crap, I wanted to run through a wall after I got done hearing them, or whatever it was, right? So I find these top, and so I went out and did research on each one of them, and I've committed to 40 hours, 4 hours per each of them, that I'm going to study them. And when I say study them, this is going to show how much of a nerd I am. I mean, I watch some of their top speeches and I take notes the entire time. And the notes aren't just about simple things. They're about how much they move on stage. What hand do they hold the microphone in? Did they change hands with the microphone? Does that have any impact on the audience? How many pauses did they have? When did they have a pause? What did they say after a pause? How do they start off the speech to kind of get you in right away? How do they end the speech? And just taking notes from all 10 of these top 10 speakers, and again, at least 4 hours for each of them. And then started to look at, after I got through that 40 hours of research, what are the commonalities between those 10, of the notes that I took? And that helped me accelerate a ton. Now, those people, I didn't sit across the desk from them. They weren't my buddies. But for a short period of time, they kind of were, because I was consuming all of this content from them and learning from them. And it's like, if these people can be that great at speaking, why can't I be, right? I'm going to emulate some of their thing. I'm going to model their behavior that they've probably taken years and years and years to learn, to help accelerate my path to success. I did the same thing in powerlifting. I got around people that, not only the one guy that got me into it, but I went to Iowa. I live in Ohio. I went and traveled out to Iowa for a week and followed a guy around who was a world record holder, because I said, I want to know everything you do. I want to learn how you live. Like, 24 hours a day. How are you handling your personal life, things like that. So I think that's one thing to consider. As far as knowing if you're not in the right group, man, the two simple things I would suggest there, if you're around someone and you notice that they're draining your energy, you got to get away from that person. Like I had someone who was pretty close to me that I was seeing pretty regularly, that he was an energy drainer. And it took me a while to figure it out. And I love the guy, still a really good friend of mine, but I have to limit my time around him because he is, in his instance, he's super negative about everything. And so what I found is, if I'm around him and his energy level is a -10, I need to be at a +10 just to get us back to 0. And I got to be a +10 all the time. And so it's draining. He's the kind of guy that you go, oh man, do you see the weather? How about this sunshine? And he'd go, it's going to rain in 2 hours. You're like, really, bro? Like, that's a simple example. That's literally a conversation we had one day. And that was one of the times I finally recognized, like, holy crap, he's a -10 guy or more, So if you're around people that are like that, if you're around people that, when you have ideas or something you want to do or something you want to try to achieve, and you say it and they go, yeah, man, I don't know. You might want to pump the brakes on that one. Might not be the group you want to be around, right? Or the people you want to be around. You want someone that's going to go, holy crap, that is a massive goal. Tell me how you're going to do that, right? They might not, in their mind, they might think there's no freaking way you're going to be able to do that, but they're not going to say it out loud. They're going to encourage you to walk through it and think through those things and encourage you to achieve it. And so those are, I guess, kind of two ways you can consider the people you're hanging out with on a regular basis. If you're hanging around the wrong people, if they've got, some of those habits that aren't conducive and supportive of whatever you're trying to achieve, whatever that might be. If you're trying to lose weight and you're on a diet and you're trying to lose weight and all your buddies go to eat McDonald's every day, and they're, when you want to go eat a salad and they're like, oh, come on, just have a Big Mac. That's not what you want, right? You could have buddies that eat McDonald's that go, hey, man, God bless. You go eat your salad. I'm going to have me some McDonald's. But, I support you, but hope your salad is as good as my Big Mac, So they don't have to have the exact same habits as you, but they can't discourage you from what you're trying to do, even when their goals don't align or, their lifestyle doesn't align with yours or whatever it might be. Their habits don't align with what you're trying to achieve.
There was a talent agent that I was emailing back and forth with a while ago, and I asked them how do they know like what circles he should be in, because he's a talent agent, everybody kind of wants something from him. And he said that if I wouldn't happily trust you to be the stepfather of my kids, I don't want to be around you. I thought it was an amazing way to analyze people.
Yeah, that's a good one too, for sure. Yeah, that's a very good one. Yeah.
A big thing now that this generation chains to success with is morning routines. Are they bullshit, or should you have a strong one?
I think for me, I'm not so linear on things like that, because I know there are certain people that get a lot of energy in the evening. They're night owls. So if you are an absolute ass kicker from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., knock yourself out, man. Why would you take away your most productive hours if that's how you're wired? And of course, if you're staying up till 2 a.m., you're not going to be up at 5 a.m. starting this, vaunted morning routine, right? You're not going to be effective otherwise. And so for me, I think it really depends individually. I look at it as more not necessarily a morning routine, is more of a it's a number one, a daily routine, but also there are certain things I think that doesn't necessarily be morning, right? So again, if you're up till 3, 4 in the morning and you sleep in until 10 before you get started, I think that stacking small wins early in the morning is super important. When you get up, I should say. It doesn't have to be morning. You don't have to get up at 5 a.m. to do this. You can get up at 10 a.m. do it if you're up late or whatever. But for me, stacking small wins, it just has at least for me personally, and I know a lot of people that I mentor, it has a massive impact on you. And so I stack my wins the night before. I plan my day the night before. And I know when I get up in the morning, I've set myself up for success, because I've set myself up for I'm going to knock 4 or 5 things out of the park, small things, but I consider in my head for me to be success. And so the next thing you know, I'm 2 hours into my day and I'm like, holy shit, look what I've already gotten done. When in reality, it's a Jedi mind trick. I set myself up the night before to have this amazing first 2 hours of the day. But nonetheless, as it's going on, you're like, man, I am just absolutely killing it. And that just catapults you to the rest of the day. And so not necessarily for me, it's a morning routine. It's more of a sort of a day thing. And then, because again, I think I had a buddy of mine who he's a night owl, and he crushes it. He's up super late and he's like, man, I just get so much creative juices flowing late in the evening. And he was trying to convert himself to be this get up at 5 o'clock in the morning guy. And he was struggling. And he's like, I get up at 5 and I'm like a zombie until 10 o'clock in the morning. I said, you just wasted 5 hours of your day. And he's like, I can't help it. I just can't do it. But then he's like this creative genius, late in the night. I said, stop trying to put yourself in everyone else's box. If you're not a morning person, don't get up and waste those 5 hours. You'd rather have those 5 hours during your creative time, in the evenings. So take advantage of what works best for you. And so that's another one of those things of trying to do what everyone else says. You know what I mean? Like trying to fit into everyone else's box of success, or however you want to phrase it. I don't think that necessarily works. And, me, myself, I'm kind of converting myself a little bit from a night owl, but I will usually take 1 or 2 nights where I'll just plan that I'm going to stay up late, that I'm going to stay up until 2 o'clock in the morning, because I get a lot of energy in the evenings. But then I don't want to, come on the next day and not get going until 10 or 11 either. So it's kind of a catch-22 for me. Or if I've got something going on and I got to get up at 6:30 and I'm up till 2, 4.5 hours sleep, that's not a long-term success for me.
What kind of small ones?
I mean, honestly, for me, again, these are going to sound silly. Making my bed every day. I get up and make the bed. It's real easy to get up, especially if you're in a hurry, and just say, screw it and leave it, right? But then for me, I'm a pretty neat guy or whatever. When I come home, first of all, my wife likes it. So that's a little mini husband win for me, right? But then when I get home later in the day or whatever, and I come into our bedroom and the bed's not made, it's like, well, that looks like crap. And as soon as I walk in, it's almost like it's a mini thing, but it's like a negative thing. Like, why was I too lazy to make the bed? It takes, 30 seconds to make the bed. Success like that. So little things like that. There are certain things that I line up. Moving my body. Doing something, right? So everyone's like, oh, you got to get up and, do 30 minutes of cardio. Whatever it is you feel like that day. Just move your body, do something. Take your dog for a walk, go for a walk. There are times just to kind of check that box for me is I'll get on my Peloton for 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes. People go, that's a waste of time. No, because for me, I know that I at least did something. I checked the box. I didn't feel like doing anything. I got on the Peloton for 10 minutes. Yeah, is that what I want to do every day? No, but I didn't feel like doing crap today, and I didn't have the time, but I at least got 10 minutes in. And I had this checklist that literally I was going to show you. I got it in my wallet. But obviously we're audio. But so I follow Jesse Itzler, entrepreneur guy, very successful guy, and he talks about having daily vitamins. And what he considers to be daily vitamins are things that give you energy, things that make you happy. And he said they could be super small things. And make a list of those and try to make sure that you quote unquote take at least 5 of your daily vitamins every day. So I literally have a laminated list in my wallet to where, I'll look at it, not every single day because I kind of have it memorized now, but there are things that give me energy every single day. And actually, let me pull it out here. They give me energy every day. So, I'll try to stack some of those daily vitamins in the morning because I know when I do those things, they make me feel good. Me, I'm up by 7 a.m., moving my body in some way, some sort of workout, a cold shower. Now, I don't do all of these every single day, but I try to, at least do 5 of these. So I have a list of 20. Taking my vitamins, literally taking my vitamins, the regular vitamins, doing some sort of house task, doing the dishes for my wife, run the vacuum cleaner. It could be something small like that. Some kind of contact with family. Talking to one of my daughters, calling my mom, calling my brother, something like that. creating content, creating some sort of content. I love listening to music. I love reading, a bunch of different things. I won't go through the whole list here, but those are the kind of things that for me, they give me energy. And so I try to stack those, especially as part of not necessarily a morning routine, but an early in the day routine, because again, they give me energy and they give me momentum.
Yeah, it's so key. Since I've learned, like, getting older and stuff, like, it's so key gaining momentum in the morning. Like, it's not even just gonna do something incredible to your whole day. It'll do something incredible to your whole week. Like, because you can't really go wrong there. But before we started recording, I was doing some some niche research on like random things like excuses and stuff people give themselves, and
Well,
someone in the University of Oxford has done a study that the most offensive statement to Gen Z people is "you got lucky," and I just thought about it because it got me laughing. Because I don't know, maybe this is just me that has this belief, but do you think for anyone to have any kind of success in anything, whether it's business or just in life, you do need an element of luck?
I don't really believe in luck. I believe you create luck. I believe that you, by getting up and putting yourself out there and putting yourself in situations where luck finds you, you don't find luck. To where, again, when someone says, "Oh man, you got lucky," like someone could say, for example, going back to the example earlier, I was training at that gym with a guy who was a world-class powerlifter, and that's what got me into the sport and, helped me, right? And someone could say, "Well, you got lucky that guy was at your gym." I don't look at it that way. I chose to be at that gym. It's a hardcore, serious training gym. I could have gone to some foo-foo gym where it wasn't the same type of atmosphere. I was at that gym all the time training. If I was a once a week, going to the gym guy, I probably never run into this guy. And he wouldn't have seen me coming in all the time and invited me to come to his group. He knew I was at the gym all the time. So he knew I was serious. He knew I was disciplined. So yeah, I was quote unquote lucky that guy was at the gym. But I look at it as I created that luck, because with my habits, with being at the gym all the time, with being at that gym, these are all my choices that I made that put myself in a position to quote unquote get lucky. And so I think that's a big part of it too, is, again, making sure you're putting yourself out there and putting yourself in the circles you need to be in, to let luck find you.
Yeah, do you think then everything happens for a reason is a better example?
Yeah, I do. I say that to my kids all the time. I really do. And that's what I just mentioned, that the anecdote I just shared is a big part of that. Is I think it's if you're sitting in so I had a buddy of mine years ago, single guy. He wanted to be, he was almost like the stereotype of what you hear about like women when they want to get married and all this stuff. He was that guy. He wanted to find a girlfriend. He wanted to get married. He wanted to have a wife. But he never left his freaking apartment. And I'm like, dude, you think Mrs. Right is just going to come knock on the door and go, "Hey, Frank, I'd like to be your wife"? Like I said, you got to get your butt out and get in some places. He goes, "I don't want to go to a bar." Then don't go to a bar. Meet women at your church. Like, I don't know, where do you hang out? Where do you want to meet a woman at? Get your ass there. You can't just sit in your apartment and watch TV all day and your wife's going to show up. So find yourself where you're going to quote unquote get lucky and find Mrs. Right, your next, your wife. It's an example. You got to get out and get in those circles and be around those people and rub elbows with those people. I mean, it's super important. But yeah, I think everything happens for a reason. But I also think you need to put things in perspective. Because I've had one of my daughters one time, something negative happened to her, and she said, "Oh, well, then what's this mean, Dad? You said everything happens for reasons. This is something bad." I'm like, no, that's not the perspective to have. Like, this happened, so what direction is it pushing you in? Maybe this is life telling you that's not the right path you should be going down, and it's trying to shift you in a different way. And so, having that perspective on things, and, actually, before we even started recording, when, I had some challenges with some traffic and all this other stuff and spilled coffee in the studio here. And you said something like, "Oh, you're having a, tough day or challenging day." And I said, you know what? If these are the worst things that happened to me today, I'm going to have a freaking fantastic day.
Great day.
And I think if we have that perspective when bad things happen, now sometimes they're really bad things that happen to you and you go, yeah, this is going to make my day bad, right? But most often, I think we make a mountain out of a molehill when something bad happens, or 2 or 3 things happen. So for me today, I'm on my way to the studio to come do this interview with you. I get stuck in some unknown traffic and then be in an accident, right? So then I get through that, and then I get stuck at a train crossing. There's a train coming. That's 2 things in a row. It'd be easy for me to be like, man, I'm having a shit day. But I didn't. I was like, so I'm texting you. I'm like, hey, I'm running late. I'm really sorry. And then I'm like, again, I'm starting to think like, if the worst thing that happens to me is that I'm 10 minutes late, I'm going to be apologetic and I'm sorry. But the rest of my day is going to be pretty freaking great. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't the end of the world. I'm not going to allow this, because it's that whole thing of, I've heard Tony Robbins do this thing. You may have heard it or heard a version of it. Whatever you're looking for, you're going to find. And so he does this exercise where he's interviewing someone and they're sitting in a room and it looks like there's a bunch of books and everything. Like he said, look around the room and I'm going to give you 5 seconds. Look for everything you can find that's green. And so the guy looks around and he goes, okay, I got it. He goes, okay, now, and Robbins says, now close your eyes. Tell me everything you saw that was red. And the guy's got his eyes closed and he just starts smiling. He doesn't open his eyes. He starts smiling and he goes, shit. Red? And he literally, I think he named one red thing. And so then Tony Robbins says, open your eyes and look around the room and look at how many things in this room are red. And he goes, name them. For people who can't see, start naming. And he must have named 25 things that were red. But he wasn't looking for red. He was looking for green. So it just goes to show you, if you have a couple of minor bad things happen, you get stuck in traffic, get stuck in a train, can't get, and you go, now what's going to happen? Oh yeah, well now it's raining and I got to get my umbrella, or I'm going to get wet. And then you allow that your day to just go spiral out of control in a bad way, as opposed to looking for the good things, taking a positive spin on something. Someone cuts out in front of you and I go, what the heck is this guy's problem? I'm like, maybe this guy's rushing to the hospital because his wife or his daughter is on their deathbed or just had an accident. Well, holy shit. By all means, cut out in front of me. Get your ass there. Like, let me get out of your way. And let's be honest, most of the time that's not what it is. Nonetheless, if you keep that in your mind with that type of mindset, you don't get all honked off about something that someone pulls out in front of you and you have to slam on your brakes. Are you going to remember that in 4 hours? Let alone 4 days? Like, who gives a shit about that? Like, but we allow ourselves to get so fixated on those things. And they, in the positive way we were talking about, like things to do in the morning to get, create momentum. You can also create the negative momentum too. And you start thinking about those things. And again, you're looking for the green things instead of the red things.
That's amazing. I don't want to keep you much longer because I know you have somewhere to be, but what is the best advice you've ever received in your life?
Oh, let me see. Best advice. That's tough to narrow down.
We can rephrase it here to make it easier. If you could go back to where you were at the beginning, what advice would you give that person?
I would say don't be afraid to take risks. It is a big thing. And I think a lot of people that are very risk averse probably miss out on a lot of opportunities in life because of it. And I was one of them. I was very risk averse. And I feel like I look back now and go, man, what if? Because of things that I just passed up because I was just too risk averse. And I think, especially when you're younger, if you make a mistake, you've got plenty of time to correct it, right? If you take a risk and it's like, holy crap, this job sucks, go get another job, right? I'm not trying to, make it so like, oh, jobs, you can just go get a new job and whatever. But especially early in your career, when maybe you're not making as much money and things like that, the jobs that you're looking for are going to be more plentiful. It's going to be easier to find that. I think that was I've got a close friend of mine who had the opportunity at a corporate job. He was out of school, had a corporate job, had a corporate car and all this stuff. So he thought he was like, hot shit. Had an offer with some of his former college friends who were starting a company called Uber. You may have heard of that. He would have been, I think, the eighth or ninth employee at Uber, and he didn't take the risk. And some of it was his dad. His dad was like, man, you got this good corporate job. This is a startup company that may go under. And then what? And now you look back at it now and you're like, well, and then what? I would go back and go to this corporate job. I'll go back to the corporate job if it doesn't work out. But I've gotten some cool experience, even if it, ended up being negative in the end. And so he would definitely say, don't be risk averse, because he looks back on that. It's like, holy crap. I mean, those same guys that were, those first dozen or so employees at Uber, when they cashed out, they're all, 100 million plus, cash out exits for those guys. And so, but that's a great example. Is he was, I don't know, I want to say 25, 26, and was afraid to take that risk. And what if he would have, And again, like I said, if he would have gone and worked for Uber and Uber would have went into crapper and, gone under at 25 or 26, say 27, 28, he's in it 2 years, he can find another job at that level that he was at, I'm sure. And if anything, his experience at Uber may help enhance him as a job candidate for other jobs, right? People go, oh man, you went through this. This is kind of a cool experience. But, I guess there's a whole bunch of different ways I could think of that. But one of the things for me, at least personally, is, don't be so risk averse, especially in your 20s. I mean, and when you're single, once you get started with a family, you have a wife, maybe you got to pull back the risk reins a little bit. And then once you have kids, you got to pull them back a little bit more probably. But especially, man, don't be afraid to, take those risks, especially in your 20s and or before you're married or anything like that.
Amazing. Ken, this is your moment now to plug anything you want to plug.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess, follow us on social media. We've got a decent social media following, put out a bunch of different content. You can find all of our social media stuff and everything. Really, the easiest way is just go to MrBiz.com and you can find anything there. You can find Mr. Biz Radio, all our different episodes there. Like I said, we've been doing the show for just crossed over 8 years now. We've been doing that. We've shared a bunch of different things. Our show's in the top 5% globally. So I think it's been, it's taken some time, but it's been received pretty well. People seem to like it. But yeah, go to MrBiz.com. And if there's any way I can help anybody, here's the other thing. Follow us on social media. And if there's anything that you think I can help with, I'll do a video. I love doing videos. So hit me up, DM us on one of the social media platforms, whatever your preferred one is, and say, hey, man, I'd love to have you do a video on fill in the blank. And we'll put it in the mix. That's how we do a lot of the content we do, is just from people reaching out saying, hey, what are your thoughts on this? Or how could I be better at this? Or, whatever it might be. If it's something that's outside of my wheelhouse, I'll tell you. But if it's something I can help you with, happy to help, and, helps give us ideas for content as well.
Follow your new favorite interviewer with the link in the description.